Okay, we're learning now the Yigeres minus Chochem. We're on page Kuftes. And here you see the heading is about the Isser Gimel Shvuos, the prohibition of 3 oaths that Hashem made with us, and the Satmar, Shita, and others like them, the Turakarta, etc., believe that by Eretz Yisrael becoming a state and things like that, they are violating these 3 Shavuos. Now, I just want, before we go into the text, turn back in the same Sefer to page Ches. So, you should know what we're talking about, okay? So go to page Ches and look at the last paragraph. V'hageh b'atzmecha, and okay, the last paragraph of page Ches. It says, "V'hageh b'atzmecha, think for yourself. Look into it yourself. This is the reference they're referring to, just so that you should know where it is. At the end of the tractate of Ksubis, Daf Kuf Yud Aleph Omid Aleph 111a, folio 8. Nimnu Sheish Shavuos. The Gemara there enumerates not 3, but 6. Aleph. Shlo Yalu Yisrael Chayma. The Jews Yidden should not go onto a wall and try to escape from Golus, from their Golus. B, that base, Shlo Yimredu B'Umasaylam. They shouldn't rebel against the Goyim. In other words, even if they aren't getting out through the wall, over the wall, there'll be rebellion. Shouldn't do that either. Gimel, Umas Ha'ilam, Lo Yishtabdu B'Yisrael, Yosem B'dai. That Goyim should not pressure Yidden more than usual. I'm just without commentary for a moment. Dalit shelo yigalu sakates. No Jews should reveal the end of times. 5. Hey, shelo yichaku. They shouldn't distance. Ulfikir sacheres, according to another way of looking at it. Shelo yitchaku esakates. There's 2 things. There's being Megala, revealing when Mashiach will come, and then there is doing things to pressure Mashiach to come. We shouldn't do that. And finally, the 6th thing is Shelo yigalu hasoid liakum. Even if you know the secret of when Mashiach is going to come, don't reveal it to the Goyim. So Reb Yoel explains, and again, you have to learn the first letter, which we're not doing now. He explains basically that when the Satmars refer to the 3 Shavuos, he says, number 1, there are 6, okay? And he says, they don't even know there are 6. But the Satmar Rov knew, and he focused on 3 out of the 6. And in the continuation of this letter on page Ches going on and all that, Tess, he has questions. Why are you choosing like a few of the first and a few of the second? It's 3 and 3. But that's for another time. So all I wanted you to see is basically the 3 Shavuos are Shelo Yalu Al Chayma, Shelo Yimredu, and they shouldn't go on the wall, get out. We shouldn't go on the wall and get out. We shouldn't rebel against the Goyim. And the 3rd one is Shelo Yishtablu Yisrael. The Yidden shouldn't be very pressured. Now, that's a question that he asks also. An oath is made to the Jews, not to the Goyim. So what do you mean the Goyim shouldn't pressure? But we're not going into that right now. The point being, these are 3 Shavuos, and Rabbi Yoel already explained in this first section that they're not an Iker and Emunah. They're not one of the 13 principles. So to go and say that it's an Isser, it's an Isser. No, it's you're following the Maral and the Shita here and the Shita there. Again, this idea of following Medrashim, Agadata, Maral, and he says it's all nice, but when you go and say an Isser, when you go and say it's forbidden, and it's forbidden in Atayra, you're mixing up apples and oranges. So now let's go back to Kuftes, the page Kuftes. Ha'inyan the Gimel Shvuos, ha'inyan shel halacha. The idea of the Gimel Shvuos is an idea of halacha. Udloi kebeis inyanim harishonim shehem inyan shel emuna. Not like the first two ideas, which is an idea of emuna. In other words, he's referring to nationalism and the idea of Golus and Geula. That touches upon Emunah, as we explained at length. Now he says, we're going to look for a moment at the argument that there's a violation of the three shvuos. So this, they want to argue, is a violation of halacha. Okay, I need you to understand the difference between halacha and emunah. Emunah is faith. It's not halacha. It's very, very important, but it's... So now he's saying we already dealt and showed that in the issue of emunah, how they have it wrong, as we explained until now. Now he says...
Right, assuming emunah, you're talking also, bitachon includes that as well, right?
Yes. And now he says, let's look at the idea that they're saying that through the state of Eretz Yisrael, it's a violation of the halacha of the Gimel Shvuos. It's not necessary to elaborate. The Gam Elu shehisbiru, the Inyan Gimel Shvuos, the loika hagoyin hatzadik misatmar zatzal, those that dealt with the three Shvuos in a different way than the Satmar Rebbe saw it. Ukamoi Marshak, a rabbi, a posek known as Marshak, Mibrod, from the city of Brod. Shekosov, he writes, Shegimel HaShvuos Tluyim B'zeh B'zeh, that the three oaths are dependent one on the other. Kamoi Shnayim Shenishba'u Zeh Lazeh, just like two that make an oath and they're dependent one on the other. V'kasheru Masa'olam Avru Al Shvuosam. So when the Goyim desecrate the Shvuah, Mutter Gam Yisrael Laver HaShvuah. In other words, this is what they argue. If the Goyim are pressuring the Yidden more than they're supposed to, that means they violated their Shvuah, so then Yidden too can violate their Shvuah. That's the way the Marshak sees it, which is not the way the Satmar R sees it. But Rabbi Yoel brings it just to show us that there isn't just one way of interpreting the three Shvuos. That's his point. So for you guys, he's saying you're leading Jews astray by saying this is the only way to look at the Gimel Shvuos. And again, because we're dealing here based on Gemaras and Midrashim and Marals, anyone can kind of, not anyone, but you could interpret it in different ways because it's not crystal clear halacha. Yes, Hillel.
I want to just understand. I've heard it said, I don't know if this is a fair assertion or not, that the opinion of Satmar is that the cause of the Holocaust was the Zionist movement, or of Zionism.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a fair assertion or not, but
the Satmar R said it. Yes, it contributed
okay.
to
So
him.
if
Yes.
it is it based upon this the idea that they were moraid against the Umas Olam, that they were breaking the Shvuah of this Shvuah that we talked about?
Yeah, because the Balfour, from when the Zionism started with Herzl and all that, the trajectory was breaking of the Shvuah. We're trying to get out of the Goyim. We're trying to be not under the shibud of Goyim. Yes.
And would you say that that the shita of Satmar would be that that the genocide of the Holocaust was oppressing the Jewish people too much, according to their approach? I'm just trying to understand all the elements.
I'm not sure. I hear what you're asking. It's a good question. I don't know. I think that they looked at the Holocaust as a retribution for the violation of the Gimel Shavuos, a punishment.
Okay.
Yeah. As far as
okay.
as far, but I hear your twist. I don't know. Maybe it'll come up. Let's go further. Derech Agav. Now we're in the parentheses. Derech Agav in the first paragraph. But by the way, he says Dvarim Elu Ksuvim b'Sefer Zerah Shimshon. There's a sefer called Zerah Shimshon. These things are written there. Shenitvis Lefnei Mosayim Shona. That was printed 200 years ago, and he gives you the citation Daf Kufay and Dalet, page 174. Dalet, the fourth side of the page. Ach, oi. Hagoyin HaKodesh Misochatshov. It was a Polish, I believe, Polish tzaddik, known the Sochatshov Rebell, was also a big Talmud Chochem. Shekosav da Shvuah shelo yalu b'choima. He writes that the Shvuah, that one is not allowed to climb the wall, hu dafke b'yad chazoka, sheloi b'reshus ha'umos. This is when the Goyim don't give you permission and you forcibly climb the wall. He says, this does not mean that you're apikursim. You're not apikursim, God forbid. Zeh shaila b'halacha. He writes, the Sochatshava, this is a shaila in halacha, b'hilchas shvuah, v'lei b'hilchas geula. In other words, okay, we have a shvuah. Now the question is this particular thing a violation of the shvuah or not? That has nothing to do with geula. Satmar arguing that this is a violation of geula. The whole geula will not come about from us pressuring the goyim to let us go and do things to rebel against the goyim. The Yoel says that the Sochatchover, he quotes the Sochatchover, says it's not an idea. It doesn't fall under the category of halacha. It falls under the category. So it doesn't fall under the category of geula. Rather, halacha, the issue of what is a shvuah and what are the details of the shvuah. He says you can look in Hilchas Shvuah and you'll see many details. What is considered a shvuah, what's not considered, etc. The Sochatchover says also regarding our thing. So basically, he's bringing in this paragraph opposing views how to learn the Gemara in Ksubas. So he wants the reader to know that just because the Satmar R and he learned it one way doesn't mean you can't learn it another way. And great Talmidei Chachamim learned it otherwise. Okay. Hine Shitas Rabbeinu Yadu Lakoil. He says the Rebbe Shita, the Lubavitcher Rebbe Shita, is known to everybody. Shal Iser de Yalu B'Chayma V'Lo Yimru B'Dum is the prohibition of not going up on the wall and not rebelling against the Goyim. Who Gam Machshav B'Negei Lakomas HaMedina. It's also now in regard to the establishment of the state, the Leikim Hashak, or the Leikim Ka'avna Nezer, but the Rebbe says doesn't follow the way the Mashak and the Avna Nezer explain it. Elasvidale, the Avna Nezer is the same one as the Sochatchover, I believe. Elasvidale, the Rebbe writes, he feels that Achash Hukim Kvar Hatzora Medina, that after, you understand, Rabbi Yoel is using the Satmar language. You know, I knew him. He wouldn't talk and write this way. He's saying, you guys consider it a tzara, so he writes it. He wants the reader, the one he's writing it to accept and be open enough to delve into it. So he says, in other words, you guys consider this a tzara. So he writes it, you understand? So he's using that type of language. That's what I think. He says, after this tzara, this problem rose, that is the Medina, the state, and there are thousands of Jews. So the Rebbe, he's explaining to the Babich Rebbe Shita, mitzvah chayva lahogin al Yehudim shlem tzayim. It's a mitzvah and an obligation to protect the Jews there. Ulahogin al pidarki ateva. And you have to protect them in natural ways. Ukamoyshe beKrown Heights, just as in Crown Heights. Uve Williamsburg and in Williamsburg. V'shar Yeshuve B'nai Yisrael and other establishments of Jewish communities, Shebechutz orders which are outside of Eretz Yisrael, M'chuyovin Onu, Lahogen Misayni Yisrael, you're obligated to protect the Jews in Crown Heights and Williamsburg and other communities from those that hate the Jews. Al Pi Shmira Shebedarki Ateva. You have to have normal ways of guarding. Misaskim, Shomrim, all those organizations are part of the natural way to protect the community. Kikein Siva Kodesh Baruch Hu B'Teirosai. Not because guys don't have what to do and they're bored of learning, they start hanging around, Shomrim, and they have cars and they're schwitzers. I'm sure you have in Eretz Yisrael too. He says no.
Hold on, I'm coming up.
It says no. He says because the Eibishter in his Torah says, Shein Soimchen al Anes. Moshe, you're not allowed to rely on a miracle. So put up your cameras, protect your house, your alarm system, get a Shemitah service, and that's Teva. That's what Hashem wants. He said, so too with the Yidden living in Eretz Yisrael, even though the Medina was established. The establishment was in a prohibited way. That's what they argue. And since, according to the natural means of things, the Rebbe argues, returning pieces of Eretz Yisrael, the shtochim, could lead, God forbid, to sakana, danger, lochem, mitzad mitzvahs, pikuach, nefashis, from the perspective of the mitzvah of the risk of soul of people. Also, b'shum oifen, lahachzer shtochim, you're not allowed to give back any land, mitzad pikuach, nefashis, nevabis, b'nei Yisrael, because you're endangering many Yidden. And you all know not everyone agreed with this, but this was the Rebbe Shita. Yes, Yonason.
When I was in Crown Heights and had the lion, Satmar R came to Crown Heights to help protect the Yidden over there.
Yes.
I remember that.
It's like, as long as it doesn't involve the Medina, everything is kosher.
Right.
That's their problem in Israel and Eretz Yisrael. Here, that's the way life is, out of sight, out of mind, or out of, right, that expression. Okay.
One
Yes.
other question.
Yes, Hillel.
According to this whole idea of the three Gimel Shavuos, is there a nafka mina in that shita that the United Nations made a partition and decreed a state of Israel? Does that make any difference in that shita? Meaning, seeming to have haskama from nations of the world.
Right. So, I'm not a bucky in this, but my understanding is they're arguing that itself was prohibited. It was brought about because the Jews pressured the Goyim, and you're not allowed to pressure. Shaloi limreit. They're saying that the fact that it got the United Nations to do it came because of us Jews soliciting and convincing and pressuring, and you're not allowed to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Next paragraph, last paragraph, page Kush Test. ואף שהשבוע של לימד בומס הוא קיים אז גם עכשיו בתוקפו. And although the oath that you're not allowed to rebel against the Goyim exists now in its full force, so Rabbi Yoel is now, so how does the Rebbe, this is what he's about to explain, so how does the Rebbe justify taking care of Eretz Yisrael? Svira li Rabbeinu Shlita, the Rebbe holds, the inyan zeh eina bechlal hashvua. This idea of protecting the Jews doesn't fall under the oath of do not rebel. Ki hashvua shalei limned b'umas hu dafke hecha sha'umas oimrim eis the inyan stam she'en negel Torah mitzvahs. It's the shvua of that we Jews should not rebel against the Goyim is specifically when the Goyim say something stam, plain, without, that's not relevant to Torah mitzvahs. If the Goyim say do a certain aveda, like desecrate Shabbos, Pashut, it's simple. The leirak she'ein achiyav l'shmoi aleim, that one doesn't have an obligation to listen to the Goyim who want you to violate Shabbos. El she'adarabba osur l'shmoi aleim, you're not allowed to listen to them. V'hochinam b'dina don. So too in our situation. Mikivin shehachzoras hashtoche mevila de sakon rachmatzlan. Since the returning of land will bring to danger, so the argument that the Goyim say return the land, so the Goyim are demanding of us that we endanger people. That's what they're. And when Goyim tell us to desecrate any mitzvah, you don't have to listen to them. In other words, when the shvua, next page, the shvua is not about, it's not about listen to the Goyim to violate a mitzvah. You're never allowed to listen to a Goy to violate a mitzvah. Whether it's Chil Shabbos or whether it's the situation that we're discussing here, returning land. So Rabbi Yoel says that the Rebbe Shita on the third shvua, the third oath, the oath of not rebelling against Goyim is a separate issue. In other words, if Goyim want you to put up street signs or to put up and you go and you violate the law, that's a violation. Is there, one second, Yoini, there's nothing prohibited about putting up signs on the street, right? They decide, and we have this, that's what we have, a Congress and a Senate, the Republicans, and the ganze Meise, what? That they decide laws. But if a law, Moshe, if a law is passed that violates a Jew, you have no obligation. That's for example, there's a big debate now, as you all know, I don't know if it's not so, but here in America, of making changing, it should be daylight savings time, I think, throughout the year. Now, and it looks that it might pass. Now, if that's the case, when we'll be able to daven those that a makbid, not till 8:30, 9 o'clock will be the earliest time of the Netzach Hama. Well, people are already on the road. People have to be in their offices 9 o'clock. So that law touches upon a halacha. So technically, we don't have to listen to that. Now, understandably, we're going to listen and we're going to do what we have to, which is we have permission to daven b'shas atchak lifnei Netzach Hama. Like the minyan, I didn't daven there, but I heard the chiyuvim this morning at the first minyan, which davens a half an hour before. They call it the Terach's minyan. I told you that, right? Avram's father's name's Terach. So the Judaism begins with Avram, but then you got Terach, the father of Avram. So Terach's minyan begins even a half an hour before, right? So for the chiyuvim, it's fine. I can hear Kaddish and Kedusha, because to get to the shir, now that the Neitz is getting later, I have to go out early and I want to hear the chiyuvim. The point being, that we have to follow and do what Titus says. So, right? So this issue is an issue of daylight saving that touches upon halacha. You don't have to listen. Again, I'm sure they're going to listen because that's the way it is. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to make a rebellion and say Jews are not keeping daylight saving time? I mean, it's just not going to work. But its nekuda is that the violation, the prohibition, the third prohibition, is about stam things that don't, pedestrian, here in New York, it's gefährlich, within Brooklyn here, with the bike lanes. They've taken away parking. They've taken away okay. They feel that people want to do bikes and it saves gas, that's their rationale. So if you go and rebel against that, that's kind of a violation of going against the goyim. Because there's no law, there's no halacha that you're not allowed to have a bike lane. Right? So that's what Yoel is saying here. The giving back of land, the shtochim, because the Satmar argued that as well. Since you took it without permission and you had no right to take it, give it back if they want it. Rabbi Yoel says you're endangering the Jew, pikuach nefesh, so it's a mitzvah and you're not allowed to listen to that. And it's not a violation of the halacha, of the shvuah. Let's finish the last paragraph on top of Kul Yud. This is the Rebbe's shita. The kitzer. Yeah, very briefly is right. I won't elaborate now. Since this is a halachic issue, not a hashkafa issue, and this letter is about hashkafa. And since I am well aware of the Satmar Rebbe shita, shegam ignezeu bichlal hashvuah, he holds it is part of the shvuah. Umi ani, Rabbi Yoel says, and who am I, she'achdes reishi, to put my head bein shnei harim gedolim, between the two big mountains, referring to the Rebbe and the Satmar Rebbe. So in other words, he says, aval al kuponim, nevertheless, zeh shnei shitas ba'halacha, it's two shitas in halacha. Mao ageder shel merida ba'umis, what exactly is the idea of rebellion against the nations? Vein zeh shayach klal inyan shel hashkafa, and it's not relevant to hashkafa. And as far as hashkafa is concerned, etzem harayin, the Zionism, the very idea of Zionism, heim b'negei lumiyut, whether it be regarding nationalism, heim b'negei l'inaschalta, whether it be regarding the beginning of the Yula, shloedi Mashiach tzedkeinu, not through Mashiach. Kvar isbarti le'el, I already addressed that before. Shrabeinu shlita, that the Rebbe lechem neged the Zionism, that he battles, he opposes. It's a Zionism oigyeiser mashar Satmar, and that's what he's trying to do here. He's trying to show the Satmar, you think that your Rebbe opposes Zionism, this Lubavitcher Rebbe who loves every Jew and sends shluchim and people to set up. Nevertheless, the sheet of Zionism, he's very much against it. But the way that the Rebbe uses his approach, it's in a positive way. By explaining what the truth of and the essence of a Jew is. And automatically, the idea of nationalism will fall aside. Rebbe explains what is the true idea of Geula. Automatically the idea of a schal to the Geula falls aside. And this he said earlier as well. So Yoel is saying, in other words, stress the positive and don't stress the negative. And I can tell you from growing up with the Rebbe and learning his Torah and being at the Fabrengas, this was the case. I never I never heard him, the Zionim are evil, things like that. He didn't speak that way, and he didn't think that way. Yeah, there's an issue that was done, and it's not proper, but let us focus, and you can get so much more with positivity. Look, one more point, then here, so I'll take it. I think it was the previous prime minister, the guy was from. I think he said at one time that the Rashab's anti-Zionism doesn't exist any longer in Chabad. I think he said that in the last 2 years. So, not that he understood what the Rashab's opposition was, because he didn't, learn it. He didn't understand it. I don't think, But the word on the street is the Rashab was against the Zionim. So he said that anti-Zionim of the Rashab in Chabad today doesn't exist. Yes, sir.
Every day on the way home from work, I pass.
What? I don't hear you. What happened? You got cut off. Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're muted. You have to take your mute off and say it again.
I don't know.
Yes, sir. You're.
No,
I can't hear you.
It's a problem with my microphone. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Every day on the way home from work, I work in Bet. I pass graffiti that says "Zioni Eno Yehudi."
Yeah. Okay. What's new? Tachas Hashemesh. What's new? What's new under the sun? Yes, listen. To me, this whole discussion and this, is you're not going to change these Satmars, but the Kippa Sruga, Merkez Arav, those are people that are intelligent, that you could, discuss. I just, one of them from Shalavim came into shul, and I saw him davening, and, with kavon and his tzitzis, and yet he had his Kippa Sruga, and I gave him Shalom Aleichem, and he told me he's here for a wedding, he's here for a Shabbaton at YU. They talked to the boys about coming to Shalavim. And I started to speak to him about this, and, he heard me, and I asked him things that we were discussing, if he has, and he said he really is not, but then he turned to me and he said to me in a nice way, Ma'u achilik, what's the difference? In other words, you can have a discussion. You can have discussion, And that's it, Yes, Moshe.
Yeah, I think on that note, it's interesting when you were just saying that now, it just reminded me that, when we talk about a halachic issue, we talk about safety of Jews, so, it's that Merkaz Arav, the Gush Emunim, entire, movement, you call it, and they're out in, Yeshuvim, far deep in the Shomron, deep in Yehuda and Hebron, and you're talking about people who are being Moser Nefesh, and the fact of the matter is because they're there, it really provides a tremendous amount of security for the rest of us who are living like in Ramat Bet Shemesh, Yerushalayim, Tel Aviv.
Right.
Because these guys, the guys, they're mamish on the outskirts, and because they're there, and in a very real way, there's a tremendous amount of security that we all benefit from.
Right, and that's why pointing fingers is not. It's wrong, and what you said is true, and nevertheless, learning and discussing is a good thing, and that's all. The Rebbe didn't. We don't find that the Rebbe pushed people to live in those places. By the way, some Chabadniks try saying that, but it's not true. But nevertheless, once a Yid went to live there, what's the question? The Rebbe never told him, leave! Who told you to go there and endanger yourself? Never. He never said that either. So, yes, Yoini, and then, because I have to go already. Yeah, Yoini.
Yeah, so no, I remember when I was a bacher in yeshiva here in Israel, so there used to be signs all over the place. The Rebbe says you can't be mevater on one piece of land, you can't give back land for peace. It was like the whole thing, and now I understand where the basis is.
Yeah, now you understand. Oh, and Rabbi Vadia Yosef and others, they didn't agree. It was an ongoing issue. Yes, Yonason.
And it was a whole question in amongst the people in Meir Sharim, whether to take money from Batur Bumi or not.
Yeah, that's another issue. That's another.
Yeah, and I remember,
Yeah,
they used to get money.
don't take money, but don't complain when your garbage is not picked up and it smells in the streets.
Right. But there were a lot of them that were getting money from Williamsburg.
Yes.
every month.
Yeah, the Satmar would come and give out money.
To collect for
Yeah. It's an old parsha. Anyway, Chevra, we'll see everyone tomorrow. Mitzvah Shem, Zayt Gesund, Psuras Tevis. Bye-bye.
Good.
Bye-bye. Take care. Take care.
Okay.